You're not a baby, so stop acting like one.
The Disney Channel has featured many animated parents. Some are beloved, while others, well, let's just say they fit alongside some of the worst parents from their movies. Hey guys, I'm Brad with Wicked Binge, and this is Disney Channel Parents, Good to Evil. Just to make sure we're all on the same page, we're only looking at animated Disney Channel shows, none of their live-action properties. No acquired shows either, only Disney Channel originals. Finally, spoilers ahead for all the mentioned shows. First, we got the parents who really do deserve the world's greatest mom-dad mug. These are the good parents. The gold medal of good goes to Camilla Nocita from the Owl House. Admittedly, Camilla didn't have the greatest first impression, with many fans considering her to be a problematic mother when they saw her send her daughter Luz off to a camp that was supposed to help make her more normal in the first episode. But of course, we eventually learned in the third season that Camilla didn't necessarily want to send her daughter away, nor did she want her to be more normal. She just felt that helping Luz find ways to fit in would be for her benefit, considering all the struggles that Luz was having in school. Beyond this small mistake, however, Camilla proved time and time again to be nurturing, caring, and supportive to all of her children, regardless of whether or not they were biologically related to her. We first saw this when she rescued and adopted V, a shape-shifting basilisk, as another daughter, as well as later on when she took in all of Luz's friends after they were trapped in the human realm.
I will be taking this innocent child with me.
When Belos made his return, Camilla insisted on coming along to the Boiling Isles so that she can help protect her kids. Possibly her greatest moment, though, was simply opening up to Luz about her own struggles, allowing Luz to not only feel supported and loved, but also understood. It's really no surprise that this mom eventually became such a fan favorite. The Silver Medal of Good, we're giving it to Pete and Sharon McGee. While they may not fight alongside their children or help them save the world, Pete and Sharon are still incredibly solid when it comes to their parenting. Whenever they're in financial troubles or are struggling with their own issues, while they still try to be honest with their kids, they also try to make sure that they don't put any extra anxieties on their shoulders. Furthermore, the McGees love and support both their kids wholeheartedly. This is seen the most with Daryl, as while they still discipline him when he gets into trouble at school, they still love their son for the spirited and clever kid he is, and they make sure he knows this in episodes like Double Double, Daryl and Trouble.
Daryl was a model student.
As for Molly, both Pete and Sharon give her plenty of support, encouragement, and even occasional advice during her inhappifying schemes, or when she's struggling with her own issues. They have a lot of love to give, and as Molly herself says, that's all she needs. The Bronze Medal of Good goes to Bill Green from Big City Greens. Now, some may want to compare him to another yellow-skinned animated father, given how often he ends up butting heads with the boy. But while Bill can be stern and gets easily stressed, especially when Cricket is causing mischief or dragging the rest of the family into shenanigans,
Eager to leave, Cricket.
needless to say, he handles it much better than someone like Homer Simpson. For one, the thing that Bill wants the most is simply for his kids to grow up safe, happy, and responsible. He isn't an authoritarian or anything like that, but instead is just trying to guide his kids the best way that he can. Furthermore, whenever Bill does mess up, such as the times where he's being unfair, dishonest, or controlling, as seen where he lies about letting the farm animals out during a blood moon, or where he tries to force Cricket to eat all their leftover zucchini, he's actually willing to acknowledge these instances. Just admitting when they're wrong is already a rare thing for some parents, but seeing Bill always try to make up for his mistakes is especially heartwarming. We also see him being willing to talk through conflicts with his kids, treating them like people instead of just things to control, all while still being a responsible parent. All these qualities easily make Bill the cream of the crop. Next, we have Donald Duck. While he may technically just be the triplets' uncle, in the DuckTales reboot, it's made incredibly clear that he is their father figure, given that he raised them after their mother disappeared. And don't worry, we'll get to her. With that explanation out of the way, Donald is another case where you could have just had the angry and stressed out dad stereotype.
We've all got to do things we don't want to do.
While that's still a decently sized part of his character, what outshines his trademark anger issues is Donald's protectiveness of his boys. Simply put, you mess with this family, you're getting a feathered fist to the face. Donald is also devoted to his boys, willing to do anything for their sake, whether that's braving a threat or facing his own personal issues. We even learn in one episode that he actually goes to therapy for his anger issues to be a better guardian. Additionally, as protective as Donald can be, he's also willing to let the triplets spread their wings when he sees how capable they are. He still has his flaws, such as occasionally being stubborn, insecure, or his own worst enemy when it comes to his anger and bad luck, but the love love this duck has for his fam always wins out in the end. Although they aren't superheroes or adventurers, our next entry still proves to be a pair of kick-butt parents, Mr. and Mrs. Boonchoy from Amphibia. While we're sure that living with 3 weird frog creatures from another dimension took some getting used to, Mr. and Mrs. Boonchoy handled it well. What's more, they became both allies and friends of the Plantars, wanting to do what they could to help them get back home, as well as just wanting to repay them for taking care of their daughter for so long.
You 3 took my daughter into your home when she needed it most.
Speaking of which, the Boonchoys are shown having a pretty strong healthy dynamic, with it being implied that, out of the Calamity Trio, Anne has the healthiest relationship with her parents. Her mother does end up briefly smothering her after her return, but we'd say that's pretty understandable. We also see that Anne's mom can sometimes be fairly stern, seeing her daughter as irresponsible and dishonest, leading her to put pressure on her to be better. However, she's willing to take back these words after she's seen how much Anne has truly grown, being proud of her for protecting the Plantars. It's really nice seeing them bond and grow to understand each other in other episodes too, like in the Thai community episode and in the Christmas episode. Throughout the rest of the series, we really see the Boonchoy step up, fighting alongside their daughter for the sake of both worlds. Next, we have Lawrence Fletcher. Mild-mannered and kinda kooky, Lawrence admittedly tends to blend into the background whenever he isn't being used in a gag. Still, whenever this Brit does have the spotlight, he often ends up showing his best traits as both a dad and stepdad. He has strong bonds with each of his kids, encouraging his sons to be creative with their inventions and even participating in their daily activities on occasion.
With his golden chariot, he would win every race.
As for Candace, while his daughter may not see him as the coolest dad ever, he knows how to calm her down without completely dismissing her, as seen in the episode where they're briefly stranded on an island. We also got a great episode where Lawrence taught Candace how to drive, with the help of Phineas and Ferb's monster truck of course, and they even participate in a daddy-daughter picnic each year. While some may see him as oblivious, although not nearly as much as his wife, let's be fair here, his level-headed and calm nature and the love he has for his family shine through more often than not. All it took was him simply seeing his sons for him to break out of an innate or induced evil personality. That on its own should say a lot. James and Andrea Lafayette are able to give plenty of support to their daughter Lunella, even if they don't always know what's going on with her. Given that Lunella is a literal superhero, this is a given. But whether they're doing their best to support Lunella or are cheering on and assisting Moon Girl from the sidelines, they love their daughter wholeheartedly. James especially tries to spend as much time with her as possible, telling her stories and taking her to the movies or out for ice cream, in addition to the skate competition they do together each year. It should also be noted that while the idea of Lunella growing up makes him sad, he doesn't hold it against her when it seems like she's lost interest in spending time with him. Andrea, meanwhile, provides Lunella with a lot of advice and emotional support, as seen in the episodes Hair Today, Gone Tomorrow, and Like Mother, Like Moon Girl.
Lunella, your voice does matter.
Though in the latter, she tried to put all the blame on the LES's gentrification problems on Moon Girl, which was unfair, but this was more of an emotional reaction than anything else. And again, she didn't know that she was blaming her daughter. Really though? You have to wonder when these two are gonna wise up and realize the obvious. Nancy Green can be a bad influence, hence why she's several spots below her ex-husband. She has the fun parent vibes, where she tends to care a bit more about showing her kids a good time than disciplining them.
You ready to tear up this town?
This is understandable, given that she was away from them for so long and likely just wants to make up for lost time. But when you see her doing things like encouraging Cricket to play pranks or even participating in the pranks herself, like during the whole Zill and Brax incident, it can certainly be seen as problematic. But like Bill, Nancy cares a lot about her kids, and as such will eventually step up when she needs to protect them and keep them out of trouble. We see in several episodes how strong of a bond she has with Tilly, like when she helped her find a new look or when they spent a snow day together. It's really sweet, and they're probably the best moments of her being both a fun and responsible mom, even if that last part is still sometimes a struggle for her. Next, we have Heinz Doofenshmirtz. Overprotective, well-meaning, and incredibly dorky, Doof certainly has had the biggest parenting struggles out of anyone in this tier. Given his own terrible parents and awful childhood, you sort of get why he would struggle with boundaries and parenting in general. It can't be denied that Doof really tries his best when it comes to Vanessa. He tries to give her everything that he was denied as a kid. While he can sometimes struggle with a work-life balance, such as when he used their vacation together as a means to conduct an evil scheme, he ultimately chooses her each time. The show is also filled with Doof's meaningful gestures, like spending years trying to track down a doll she wanted, or letting himself get stung by dozens of bees to protect her. For as much as he may still have room for improvement, this is still a case where Doof's good intentions make all the difference. Moving on, we have the parents that, while not exactly perfect, their more admirable traits manage to overshadow their flaws. Welcome to the gray area. Starting off the section, we have Raphael and Angie Diaz from Star versus the forces of evil. In all honesty, they aren't bad people. In fact, they're probably the best host family that Star could have asked for. They're friendly, caring, cheerful, and doting. Additionally, they aren't terrible parents either. They're just a bit lax in their parenting. It's rare to see them take part in an episode's story, and when they are there, they're kind of just letting Star and Marco do whatever.
But where are they?
Even for average humans, they're incredibly oblivious when it comes to danger, and though they can be somewhat protective, they don't really participate in any of the show's main conflicts, nor do they really try to step in when they learn about all the danger their son is participating in. This gets to the point where they just let Marco leave Earth, with it later showing just how little they actually know about their son in the episode Marco Jr. But all of this shouldn't be interpreted as them not caring, as we do see both Angie and Raphael try to give Marco advice when it comes to his feelings about Star. Overall, we'd call them decent, if perhaps just a bit irresponsible, and perhaps too willing to give their kids freedom without first looking into what exactly they'd be doing. Next, we have Linda Flynn Fletcher. On the surface, Linda is loving, sweet, and always ready to make her kids a snack. But for as kind and chill as she can be, her interactions with Candace show time and again just how dismissive she can be when it comes to all her so-called crazy claims about what her brothers are doing. Linda makes it very clear that she doesn't ever believe Candace, often getting fairly annoyed with her and barely making an effort to get to the bottom of her daughter's obsession. But like with Raphael and Angie Diaz, it should still be noted that this doesn't mean Linda doesn't care at all. Outside of dismissing Candace's claims, she's still supportive of all her kids and tries to offer advice and affection whenever it's asked of her. Even if she doesn't believe Candace's stories, Linda still trusts her enough to frequently have her in charge.
If that happens, you're in charge.
Also, to be fair to her, she also brushed off Ferb when he tried to tell her about their crazy adventure in the episode Ready for the Bettys, so it's not like she's playing favorites when it comes to believing or not believing her kids. For as much as our grade-tier parents have made their mistakes, the moments when they try to improve themselves, as seen with Adalia Blight, are always appreciated. As the chief engineer of Blight Industries, Adalia was often focused on his work and left his wife Adalia in charge of their children, believing that both this and the work he was doing was all for the benefit of their family. However, things eventually came to a head, and Adalia realized just how much he was neglecting not just Amity, who he kept dismissing in spite of her interest in abomination magic, but all of his kids. It took several tries for him to fully realize how dismissive he was being, to the point of not even knowing that his youngest daughter was in a relationship.
I bet you didn't even know I was dating Luce.
From this, he decided to become a better father, and was actually more willing to confront his soon-to-be ex-wife about issues, instead of just passively letting her handle and control everything. For what it's worth, Adalia stuck to his promise of being better, protecting his children throughout the last half of Season 2 during the Day of Unity arc. We don't see too much of Adalia after this, but at the very least, it's implied that his relationship with his kids will continue improving, which of course is always nice to see. Della Duck was another parent who had to grow. Now, let's make this clear from the get-go. Della, for as selfish as she was in her youth, still loves her kids. After being stranded on the moon for 11 years, you could just tell that the moment where she finally got to see her triplets again meant a lot to her. Unfortunately, love and good intentions can only go so far.
And I'm going to be the best mom, starting right now.
And while we can acknowledge that Della was still trying to be a good mother after coming back into the boys' lives, she still had several questionable parenting moments, such as only seeing Louis' schemes as trouble and going overboard when it came to grounding him for the time tub incident. She also inadvertently gave Dewey a complex, making him feel like he constantly had to prove himself as a capable adventurer like she was. Thankfully, at the end of Raiders of the Doomsday Vault, she reassured Dewey that she would always believe in him and that he didn't have to prove anything. Adding on to this, Della managed to have several other really nice scenes with her kids throughout the latter half of the reboot series, where we saw her bond with Huey over video games and Junior Woodchuck stuff, sing a Powerline duet with Dewey, and eventually managed to find common ground and acceptance with Louie. Wrapping up the gray area, we have Oscar and Trudy Proud. The entirety of the Proud family tends to fall comfortably into comedically dysfunctional, which does fit for an animated sitcom. Between both the original series and the reboot, some fans have begun to see the Proud parents as pretty problematic. While it's reasonable for parents to sometimes ask for help from their eldest kids, both Oscar and Trudy tend to force Penny to babysit quite often, sometimes on very short notice. Speaking of Oscar, his overprotectiveness when it comes to his daughter's relationship with boys boys is pretty infamous for a reason, to the point where he was willing to cancel Penny's 16th birthday because he saw her kissing a boy.
And you're grounded for a week.
As for Trudy, well, we're sure you've heard of the incident in the reboot where Trudy went out of her way to lock Penny out of the house as punishment for breaking curfew and neglecting her homework. Obviously, Penny needed some sort of consequence for being irresponsible, but many felt this was going too far. Really, the only reason why these two didn't end up falling into the bad tier is that, outside of maybe that last example, they haven't done anything that's too irredeemable. They'll still do whatever they need to protect their kids. And while they may have their harsh moments, it's made clear that they love Penny no matter what. Finally, we've arrived at the absolute worst parents that the channel has to offer. These are the bad to evil parents. Our bronze medal of evil goes to Queen Moon. Like Trudy, Moon has a pretty infamous moment, but let's start with the basics. Out of all the parents we've discussed so far, Moon was probably the most stern and overbearing, demanding that she follow traditions and often threatening Star with St. Olga's if she didn't start behaving like the queen in training that she is.
And destroyed your wand.
As Marco says, Star ended up getting a ton of mother issues from this. To her credit, Moon's stern nature does come from love and protectiveness, and she does eventually start to trust Star's abilities, and even Star. But this all falls apart when she decides to go behind Star's back and help Mina overthrow Queen Eclipsa. Mind you, she knew that Star was an ally of Eclipsa and would likely fight by her side, yet she had no problems with giving Mina what was essentially indestructible armor and weapons. Yeah, for as much as Moon may care about Star, this was most certainly the biggest example of her putting her own beliefs and desires above Star's wants, as well as her daughter's safety. And for many, this was just inexcusable, regardless of the apology Moon gave after. The silver medal goes to Preston and Priscilla Northwest from Gravity Falls. They aren't super deep characters, but we feel they deserve a mention, as it was their influence, wealth, and pride that made Pacifica such a brat in the first place. But beyond that, Preston specifically was revealed to be incredibly controlling, using a bell to make sure that his daughter always fell in line, and never taking her opinion into account. Essentially, they seemed to only want an heir, and a doll they could use and command. But as awful as this was, one Disney parent still did this better, or should we say worse. Finally, our gold medal of evil goes to Adalia Blight, who managed to be dismissive, controlling, and manipulative towards every member of her family. With how greedy and tyrannical she is, it really isn't a surprise that Adalia would put herself above even those who she was supposed to love the most.
Really, Mittens, I'm tired of all this drama.
From how she makes them dress to forcing them to participate in Blight Industries presentations, Adalia only ever sees her kids as something she can use to grow their family and their company's influence and reputation. This was most true with Amity, who she tried to mold into a copy of herself to the point of forcing her to dye her hair green. She tried to separate Amity from her friends when she thought that they were making her rebellious, and Adalia was even willing to capture and attack Amity and the others during the Day of Unity arc. As for Edric and Emra, while Adalia did seem to favor them, she still didn't truly care for them like a mother should, and was even willing to use them as bargaining chips to keep her husband in line. The fact that she never apologized for any of these things or even feel remorseful seals her fate as the worst Disney Channel parent.